Welcome to another edition of Tuscaloosa Talks. This is a Veterans Day edition, and who better to have than Lee Busby, Councilor Lee Busby, long time, grew up here in Tuscaloosa, a Marine Colonel, very distinguished career. So being that this is a Veterans Day edition, Lee, you've described to me that your childhood and college days were kind of, I wouldn't say wild, but I think you had fun. Maybe that's a fair.
I would, and there's no arrest records to document it, so.
Statute of limitations have expired anyway.
Correct.
How did you find yourself going to the United States Marine Corps?
Pretty simple, Mayor. I had been raised right. I knew the difference in right and wrong. I had veered off the track a little, and I knew that the Marine Corps would accommodate me in getting me back on the track, and they did. They were not interested in my problems, what I thought, my excuses, or anything else. They shaved my head, grabbed me by the stack and swivel, and taught me this is how we do things, and this is how you're going to do them.
Did you know once you got in that you liked it? Did
No.
So you didn't take an immediate attraction to it.
I have a vivid memory of sitting on the back steps of the old barracks in Quantico at Officer Candidate School, drenched in sweat, trying to light a Camel non-filter cigarette that was so soaked with sweat I couldn't get it lit, and thinking, if these fools ever let me out of here, they will never see me again. And 31 years later, I retired.
How about that? So most people who are not in the military, who don't, like myself, who never served, our vision of the Marine Corps comes from a movie, Full Metal Jacket. How accurate is that, especially that boot camp experience?
I think the first half of the movie, certainly for that time frame, which was probably late 60s, early 70s, I think the first half of the movie is so well liked by so many Marines because it is pretty accurate. Of course, over time, we've adopted to the times, and it's not quite as stark as that.
Well, my stepson Trey went through the Marine Corps and went through Parris Island, and it really shaped his life. And he said kind of the same thing you did. Yeah, there were parts of it that true, drill instructor tough, but it, you didn't get beat like what they showed now.
No.
And so, but I do think I think the positive though is most people when they look at a United States Marine, they think that is one tough guy, and I think that movie solidified that. Oh, absolutely. That's
been a change for us.
So when you left Officer Candidate School and you've served in some active theaters. Talk about your experience in Iraq, because now that America has basically left that region, you spent a lot of time there. What could you share with people of Tuscaloosa about what you saw there and what you experienced?
Oh man, that's a long
I can
story.
Imagine.
And my career is punctuated. I went in as a young man on active duty, commissioned as an infantry officer, 2nd Marine Division out of Camp Lejeune and all over the world there. And then I went into the reserves, and the middle portion of my adulthood, I was shooting for a normal family life. I had a financial business. My ex-wife and I raised 4 children here in Tuscaloosa, and then went back in, was called back to duty in 1991 when Saddam invaded Kuwait, and then back after 9/11, thinking I was going to be gone about 6 months, and came back 10 years later. Iraq was bizarre, fascinating. I primarily worked out of the Western Province in Al Anbar, which was kind of Marine territory. I was privileged to work on General Petraeus's staff and in Baghdad, and I met some of the most brilliant, fascinating people you'd ever meet on both sides, American and Iraqi. And sometimes I'll hear this talk about very hostile talk about Arabs, Muslims, etc. And I have to tell them that my experience is on both sides of that. I had Muslim Arabs who tried very diligently to kill me, and I had Arab Muslims who put their own safety and that of their families in jeopardy to help us and do good things. And so it was a time to be there, and I'm glad I was there. I'm more glad I'm gone, and then ended up in Afghanistan for another year after retiring from the Marine Corps.
What was your experience like in Afghanistan?
Ugly. It was.
Where'd you serve? Kabul
I worked
region?
primarily out of Kabul. Again, we had Marine territory down to the southwest, Kandahar, and was back and forth down there, but primarily out of Kabul. And there had been a time a few years earlier where Afghanistan's where you wanted to go. We had come in, we had ejected the Taliban, and Afghanistan was a reasonably safe.
Trey served a year in Afghanistan.
It turned ugly subsequently as we successfully ran some of the bad guys out of Iraq, and they reestablished themselves in Afghanistan, and it turned very ugly and marked by the kind of tragedy that blowing up markets with innocent people in them. It was a mess. Iraq had been a real society. It had infrastructure, it had libraries, universities, roadways, airports, art, all of that.
Long history of civilization.
Correct. Yeah. Much longer than ours. Afghanistan, on the other hand, in many ways, still 12th, 14th century, a very hard place.
No, and I don't want to take us down a rabbit trail, but I do think, you have a unique experience. You've served in Iraq and in Afghanistan, and certainly in the news, the recent American departure from Afghanistan, and then the way we departed as well. What do you think? Are we going to be back in that region in the next 5 years, 10 years, or do you think there will be a stabilizing effect? I'd just be interested. You've served there. What are your thoughts on all of that?
So, and again, I'm going to have to compress these because
Absolutely.
The year I spent there was working privately, training the Afghan army, and not hands-on me training them, but putting together the organization that trained them. So very, very much immersed in that bilateral cooperation there. I think anyone who did not foresee the almost instantaneous collapse when we began to pull out either wasn't looking or had no experience there. You have to remember in that culture, in order to survive, if you're still alive, it's because you had adopted a way of dealing with constant conflict and war, and that is, if you saw you were not going to win, you very quickly sat down, negotiated flipping sides, and that way you were still alive.
Wow.
In terms of whether I think we'll be back there, I actually spoke to the Wise Men's Club in this very room, and the way that we got out of there was part of our mistake, but the way that we were in there was perhaps the bigger part of the mistake.
That's interesting.
That was not an environment to be fought in our conventional U.S. military units and tactics. I often thought, as we were getting paid billions of dollars to train the Afghans, I often thought that the roles should have been reversed. It should have been the Afghans training us on how to fight and survive over there, because they knew it much better than we. So being in there in that scale with that much equipment, I mean, we're given computerized parts inventory training to people who A, can't read, and B, can't read English. And to be surprised that, oh, it didn't work and it collapsed as soon as we left is foolish. I don't think we should have gotten out in the sense of out, all gone. We're present all over the world in size and operating modes that are just not visible. And that's what
The
we should have.
over-the-horizon
That's
technologies.
Well,
yeah.
over the horizon one, but a presence in country in small scale where we're more or less attached to the host country military, not where we're building bases to put our units in airfields and shipping helicopters and armored cars. It just doesn't work there.
Well, look, to transition, because we could do another podcast on this because this
We
is
could do
so
several.
fascinating. But okay, so we've talked about very global issues that impact, hundreds of millions of people in a region, certainly impacts the entire world. How's it been to transition from that to City Council District 4? I mean, where the issues, quite frankly, are not life and death. They're not, they're not going to change generations. Well, I guess they could, but I mean, they're certainly very micro compared to what you were dealing with before. How's that transition gone for you?
It's been a learning curve unto itself. I got into that or this, I guess. I had dallied in some other things politically. I'd never been a political creature. I had some health issues that were going to cause me to stay close to home, and this seat popped up unexpectedly, and I thought, there's an answer. There's where I can serve. I don't have to move. I don't have to uproot my home. It's part-time. All those things are true. It is, but it also is probably the most intimate of political levels to serve at. I mean, if you're sitting in Washington as a senator, you're not in the grocery store every Wednesday and Saturday surrounded by the people that you represent.
Yeah.
They're not in the restaurants you're going to or walking on the sidewalk on a pretty day. So it's a very interesting level at which to serve, and but it's required some temperamental adjustments for me, and for the most part, I'm doing those, and it is rewarding to be able to see so intimately. I mean, you and I could look out these windows, and both of us could point to things going on that we're both involved in, and the same all over the district and all over the 7 that comprise the city. So,
what's been the most surprising thing? Is that one that you need a few days to answer, or is it a?
No, I think I'll take a stab at it. The most surprising thing is how very few issues on which there is some sort of clear consensus.
Yeah.
I find more of them it's hard to discern what the true consensus is. So in politics, Abraham Lincoln talked about this. If you're elected, sure, you certainly your own experience, your own philosophy, your own temperament play into it. But as an elected official, Lincoln said your first responsibility is to represent the people you're elected to represent. And he said, if your opinion differs from that, then fine, go ahead and over time try to bring them around. But you're there to represent the people that put you there, and that's okay, that's great. Sometimes discerning what those people want is difficult because the chorus is equally loud on both sides of an issue, and you're trying to get to the bottom. I mean, you've done this for decades.
Yeah.
But for me, it is a new encounter.
Well, I mean, it is, and even within a district, the diversity of opinion.
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
I mean, it can be amazing, and a lot of times I tell people there's merit on both sides of these issues we deal with. And it's not that the council is ignoring that, but at some point a decision has to be made. And what makes it, I think, even because I've served on the city council too, is that you got to find 4 votes on any issue, and there can be diverse issues on both sides. You just recently led the passage of our new budget. By the way, I thought you did a really good job in managing that process. From a budget standpoint, where would you like to see the city go? And then 2, for your district, where would you like to see your district go?
Well, on the budget side for the total city, I look back in that and say we're on track. We got an update briefing Tuesday. We're moving towards emerging from a very troubled year in very sound condition. I'm mostly happy with that. On the district side, redistricting, potential redistricting is coming up as a result of the census. Anybody who knows District 4 knows that it has a very unusual character. And I think there's going to be challenges with that have to be recognized. And I don't mean to speak cryptically, but I'm talking about District 4.
I mean, it's tough.
We have a huge university that's now 60% out of state, and we need to find a way to find some equilibrium between the 7 districts and their voting power.
And that gets back to what we talked about earlier, those different the diversity of the city itself, just in who we are as a people, and the diversity of where we come from, background, experiences. So that, I think redistricting is going to be a very challenging thing for this city council, and not in a, we just have unique circumstances, and other college cities face those as well. Before we run out of time though, because I want to talk about something.
Go ahead. One other thing in, and that is the other thing I have found is a new respect for those 7 people. For 31 years of my life, I worked under somebody's command. Command is a very special thing. Mm-hmm. And so I find 7 people in a committee, so to speak, very frustrating. But I have garnered a new respect for ultimately that leavening of opinion has value. Now, go ahead.
No, I think and a lot, again, it gets back to respecting everyone's background and experiences, and then when they come and voice those concerns. But I want to wrap up talking about something that's very special to both of us. And you and I had an opportunity about, I guess, a little over a year ago, to work together to be able to make certain that this YMCA kept moving forward for our children of all of Tuscaloosa. And so we're here today at the downtown YMCA. Talk a little bit about your experiences of growing up in the Y.
Yeah, I went to school 2 blocks over here at the old Stafford Elementary, which is where Shelby Park is. And the old YMCA was a few blocks down there. And every afternoon, if your parents worked till 5 or 5:30, we would walk from Stafford and spend our afternoons there. And it was great for us. It was a mixture of kids from all different economic backgrounds. And you saw the impact that YMCA and its staff had on those kids' character. And then I was out of the picture from it. Same with my father and his generation in Birmingham. We have a need for that in kids' lives in the YMCA's. And here downtown, to me, this has been a huge win in the fact that we have discarded the old black-white paradigm of a YMCA. If you come over here and work out, that workout room looks like Tuscaloosa. Now it's mostly adults and older people, not kids. But if we can achieve that same paradigm over with the Barnes branch, and I think we can, then it is worthy of significant investment on the part of the city, because there will be a benefit from it.
I thought what was really cool, and when we started this was before many of our new council members came on board, but to see you and Raven Howard work together, not only to protect this YMCA, but the Benjamin Barnes Branch YMCA, and now this budget that was just adopted, we're going to move forward with the new working with the YMCA and new Benjamin Barnes YMCA. We talked about the micro level, but we'll, long after we're done with our service with the city, we'll be able to see those things that got
Somebody
done.
will.
Yeah, and they're going to help a lot of children, and we know that our children in Tuscaloosa need a lot of help at times, and so I think it's going to be a really cool thing. Like you, the YMCA played a huge role in my life, and I'm certainly glad we could do this today. Councilor, Colonel Lee, as most people call you, on behalf of the city, thank you for your service. I mean, and you always are very deferential when you say that, but the battles that you've been a part of in both your service and in active war have kept this republic strong, and so it's not lost on any of us, and I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. This has been another edition of Tuscaloosa Talks. If you see a veteran today or throughout the week, thank them for their service. God bless you. God bless Tuscaloosa.